The sun was falling slow over Cedar Hollow, turning the dry land to fire. Heat shimmered off the rooftops, and dust drifted lazy through the air like the ghosts of all the men who'd failed here. Elias Crow rode in beneath that red sky, coat heavy with travel, eyes hollow as an old church bell. His horse limped beneath him, ribs sharp, each step a confession. Nobody said a word when he passed. They just watched from porches, through curtains, from behind the comfort of clean windows. He'd once been the town's pride, the sheriff's son, the quick shot, the man who'd protect them all. Now the sight of him made mothers clutch their children close. Years back, one bad night had set his name in the dirt. A duel gone wrong. His brother's body in the street. His own hand holding the smoking gun. No trial, no forgiveness, just a long exile swallowed by silence. He tied his horse outside the saloon, the sign creaking above him, and stepped inside. The smell of whiskey and old wood pressed against him like a memory he tried too long to bury. The piano faltered mid-tune and every head turned. Elias removed his hat, dust falling from the brim, and nodded once, polite as a ghost at its own funeral. "Crow," someone muttered near the bar. "Didn't think hell let you out." He ignored it. Ordered a drink. The barkeep's hands shook as he poured, though the man had once called him friend. The whiskey burned, sharp and mean, but it didn't do a thing for the ache that lived behind his ribs. Outside, laughter drifted on the wind, soft, warm, and achingly familiar. He turned toward it. Through the saloon window, across the street, a lamplight glowed in the window of the tailor's shop. The figure inside, small, steady, graceful, belonged to Clara Vane. She'd been the one sewing white ribbons for his brother's wedding before the bullet took him. The one who'd looked at Elias that night not with anger but something worse, pity. He left his glass half full and crossed the street. Each step felt heavier than the last. The boards creaked under his boots, the night pressing close around him. She was locking the door when he reached her. Her hair was darker now, pinned neat, her hands roughened by years of work. "Evenin', Miss Vane." His voice came low, unsure. "Didn't expect you'd still be here." She glanced up, eyes catching the lamplight like polished amber. "Some of us don't run." Her words hit like a slap, but her tone wasn't cruel, just tired, the way someone sounds when the wound's too old to bleed. "I never ran," he said. "Just didn't reckon I had a place to stay." "You still don't." She turned the key, metal scraping in the lock. He swallowed. "I heard you were mendin' hearts around here. Thought maybe." She cut him off with a whisper that could have frozen the desert. "Not the kind you tear apart, Mr. Crow?" The name sounded foreign from her lips, distant and sharp. For a long moment neither spoke. The sound of crickets filled the space between them, and the wind picked up the hem of her skirt like it wanted to carry her away. She didn't move. She just looked at him once more, searching for something, maybe the boy he used to be, and then she turned, lantern light trailing her into the dark. Elias stayed there long after she'd gone, hat in hand, the words settling heavy in his chest. Shame had a weight to it like a coat too thick to take off. He could still feel her gaze, not hateful but disappointed, and somehow that cut deeper. He walked to the livery stable, unrolled his blanket, and lay beside his horse. The night air smelled of rain, rare and electric. Above him, the stars blinked with that old, indifferent light. He thought of his brother's laugh, of Clara's trembling hands, of the life that might have been if he'd only walked away that night. But regret didn't build roads, it just circled you until you forgot which way was out. Morning came gray and thin. The rain never reached the ground, only hung like breath in the sky. Elias went looking for work, found it at Harlan Dodd's ranch. Fences down, livestock thin, the kind of place that tolerated silence. Harlan said nothing when he saw him, just pointed to a hammer and a pile of splintered boards. Elias nodded and worked until his palms cracked and bled. Every swing of the hammer beat against the past. The rhythm steadied him. Sweat ran down his neck, dust turned to mud at his boots. The sun dragged across the sky, slow and merciless, and when it finally sank, Elias looked toward town. The light in Clara's window still burned. He told himself he wouldn't go back. But as the wind picked up, carrying the faint smell of rain and soap from her shop, he found himself drawn to it anyway. From across the street he saw her silhouette bent over a sewing table, a lamp glowing gold beside her. A little girl waited nearby, dress torn at the hem, eyes full of trust. Clara smiled as she worked, though there was a sadness to it, a quiet understanding that not everything could be mended, not clean. Elias lingered in the shadows, the night pressing soft against him. He wanted to step closer, to apologize, to say anything that might loosen the knot in his chest. But words felt clumsy beside the way her hands moved, careful and sure. So he watched instead, letting the silence do what language couldn't. When the girl left, Clara stood alone in the window's glow. He turned away before she could see him. His boots scuffed against the street, echoing off the darkened storefronts. Somewhere a dog barked, the sound fading into the vast quiet. He stopped beside the well in the center of town, listening to the wind hum low through the empty streets. Rain came at last, a soft patter at first, then heavier, cleansing the dust from the wood and stone. Elias tilted his head back, letting it soak his face, run down his neck, sting his eyes. The world smelled new again, sharp and sweet. He walked back toward Clara's shop, hat in hand, unsure why. The lamplight still burned, steady through the rain-streaked glass. He could see her inside, tidying the counter, folding fabric into neat squares. She paused once, staring at the window as if she sensed him there. Elias's voice came out, barely a whisper. "If only I could wash it off, all of it." The rain answered for her, a hush against the world. Then through the pain he saw her lips move. Her voice was faint, maybe only his mind caught it, but he heard it clear as prayer. "Take it off, please?" He froze. The words reached him not as command but as mercy, a plea for truth, for shedding the weight he'd carried too long. He looked down at his coat, heavy with mud and sin, fingers gripping the collar. For the first time in years he felt something shift inside him. Fear, maybe, or hope pretending to be courage. The rain fell harder, drumming steady on the roof. Elias stood still beneath it, unsure whether she'd spoken to him or to the night itself. But her voice, soft, trembling, human, lingered in his chest like a spark refusing to die. He lowered his head, breath uneven, and the storm swallowed the rest of his silence. Morning came slow, the kind of light that seeps in cautious through thin curtains. The rain had washed the dust clean from Cedar Hollow, though the air still carried the scent of old storms. Elias stood outside Clara Vane's shop, coat folded over his arm, shirt clinging to his skin. His boots sank slightly in the mud, but he didn't move. When the door opened, she stopped short, eyes widening just enough to betray surprise. "You said to take it off," he said quietly. "So I did." Her gaze fell to the coat, heavy and dripping, then rose to his scarred chest, the pale map of every sin and survival etched there. For a heartbeat she seemed unable to breathe. Then she stepped aside. "Come in before someone sees." Inside, the shop was warm, filled with the smell of soap and thread and rain-damp wood. He hesitated at the threshold, every nerve alive. Clara gestured to a chair near the stove. The fabric she'd been mending lay half-finished on the table, needle still glinting in its loop of golden thread. "Sit," she said, her voice softer now but guarded. "You'll catch a chill." He obeyed, careful not to drip too much on the floor. The warmth from the stove crawled up his legs, unfamiliar and almost tender. Clara picked up his coat, spread it out flat on the counter, and examined the torn seams with a look that was part habit, part reverence. "You've carried this a long time," she murmured. He nodded. "It's all that's left." Her fingers brushed the collar, gentle but precise. "Then let's see if it still has some use." For a while neither spoke. The rhythm of her sewing filled the silence. Needle through fabric, thread pulling taut, the soft rasp of her breath as she worked. Elias watched the way her hands moved, the steadiness of them, and something in his chest loosened. "You were always good at fixin' things," he said. Clara's mouth twitched. "Not everything," she answered. "Some things break different." Her words hung between them. He wanted to apologize, to say the name of the man she'd lost, but shame held his tongue. She didn't need his confession, she already carried its weight. When she finally looked up, her eyes had softened. "You can't keep wearing the past, Elias. It's too heavy." He met her gaze. What else am I supposed to wear? She smiled then, faint but real. Start with forgiveness. It's lighter. Her needle flashed one last time and the coat was whole again. She laid it in his lap. The rip along the shoulder was mended with a thread that shimmered gold in the morning light. Now it's not what it was, she said. But it's something new. He ran his thumb along the stitches. You sure about that? I am, she said. Things don't have to be perfect to be worth keepin'. The door creaked open behind them, breaking the spell. A shadow filled the frame, tall, lean, restless. Cole Maddox, a young drifter with too much pride in his stance and not enough years in his bones. His spurs clinked as he stepped inside. Heard there's a ghost walkin' round this town, he said, grin sharp as a blade. Name's Crow, ain't it? The one shot his own blood. Elias rose slowly, setting the coat aside. You should find another story to chase, son. The boy's hand hovered near his gun. Town says you were fast once. I aim to see if that's true. Clara's voice cut through the room like a crack of thunder. Not here. Cole ignored her. If you're done hidin' behind skirts, mister, we can step outside. Elias's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Ain't got a gun. The boy sneered. Then borrow one. I ain't picky. Outside, the street had gathered a crowd. The word spread quick. Crow called out again. Faces lined the porches, hungry for old drama. Rainwater shimmered in the dirt like silver veins. Elias stepped into the open, barehanded, coat draped over one arm. Cole followed, hand twitching near his holster. The air between them felt like a held breath. Draw, the boy said. Elias shook his head. I'm done with that. The crowd murmured. Someone spat in the mud. The sky above rumbled faintly, a reminder of the night's storm. Cole laughed, harsh and nervous. Done? Or scared? Elias didn't answer. He let the coat fall from his arm. It hit the ground with a soft, wet thud. From the edge of the crowd, Clara stepped forward. The hem of her dress was already damp, but she moved with quiet certainty. Put that gun down, she said, voice low but steady. The boy turned toward her, uncertain now. Stay out of it, ma'am. Her eyes didn't waver. You raise that gun, Cole Maddox, and you'll carry it forever. Same way he did. The boy's hand trembled. The crowd held still, waiting. Elias stood silent, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, the eyes that once flashed like fire, were calm now, almost kind. Go home, he said gently. Cole looked from one to the other, then lowered his gun. The tension broke like glass underfoot. The sound of the hammer easing back echoed louder than any shot could have. Without another word, the boy turned and walked away. The crowd dispersed, murmuring disappointment, then awe. Elias stayed where he was until only the rain remained, soft and forgiving. Clara stepped close, her voice barely above a whisper. You did right. He looked at her. Felt like standin' still for the first time in years. She smiled faintly. Sometimes that's all it takes to change a man. They walked back toward her shop in silence. The clouds thinned and sunlight found its way through, laying gold across the muddy street. Children darted past, laughter echoing where judgment used to live. The town had started to breathe again, even if it didn't know why. In the window of Clara's shop, the repaired coat hung drying, golden stitches glinting like a promise. Elias paused to look at it. Guess it's not mine anymore, he said. Maybe it was never meant to be, she answered. He turned to her, something soft in his eyes. You think there's a place for me here now? She didn't look at him when she replied. There's a place for anyone who stops running. For a moment they just stood there, the sound of dripping water and distant hammers from the blacksmith's yard filling the air. Then she reached out, brushing a drop of rain from his cheek. The gesture was small, almost nothing, but it steadied him more than any prayer. He touched her hand in return, brief and grateful. You saved me, he said. Clara shook her head. No. You just finally listened. They stayed like that, two figures framed by light and the smell of rain and dust, until a gust of wind lifted the edge of his coat inside the window. The fabric shimmered gold where the thread caught the sun. Elias looked at it and exhaled, slow and full, as though setting something down for good. Beyond the rooftops, the sky opened wide, clear, endless, waiting. And though the town would soon forget the details, it would remember the feeling. The way silence can turn holy, the way forgiveness can sound like a whisper. He turned toward the road beyond Cedar Hollow, not to flee but to begin. The wind moved through the empty street, carrying his name softer now, almost kind, as if the world itself had decided to let him go.